Hey everyone, welcome into a special Wednesday episode of Attacking Third. Thanks for joining us. If you're with us live on youtube.com/attacking third. As a reminder, we go live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. If you're also listening as a podcast, come join us next Wednesday because it's Sandra Herrera and Lisa Carlin, and we talk everything women's football on Attacking Third. We have a lot of fun topics to get into today, but before we get into all of it, Sandra, happy Hispanic Heritage Month. We have to give a shout out to all the best out there, including one of our own, you, Sandra. How's it going?
It's going. Woke up feeling particularly Hispanic today. I mean, what can I say? It's a great month. It's a great month split up between 2 months. Yeah, you're gonna always give me cracking jokes about this kind of stuff, but love it. I'm rocking the Mexico kit today. In honor of that, I was rocking the Mexico kits last week as well because I was just like feeling it, feeling it. But here we are back at it midweek. Plenty to talk about, and thrilled to do it with you as always.
Plenty to talk about. On socials, our good friend of the show, Jenny Chu, she put out a video of her singing. It's so good. It's so good. Go watch it. You also did like a remix of the video. It's hilarious. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month to everyone, all that celebrate, and those that don't, jump on the train because it's fun. We get to honor incredible Hispanic people everywhere, especially those that are part of the show Attacking Third. Sandra, Jenny, everyone else. Today is September 18th. And before we dive into everything, I just have to say happy birthday, Mom, because she listens to and watches every single one of our shows and our episodes. And today is her birthday. So happy birthday, Mom. This is awesome. Patty Roman, you're the best. We love you.
Oh my God. This is like a surprise for me too. I had no idea it was your mom's birthday. Happy birthday. I know our moms like listen to this stuff like religiously. And we're always here for the feedback. So give it. Keep giving it.
I was always giving me feedback, and it's the best. I love you, Mom, so much. Happy birthday. Sandra, today we have a absolutely awesome episode that we are going to get through. We kicked it off last week. Countdown to Kansas City. It returns today. There are 10 weeks left before we get to the NWSL Championship that is in Kansas City. And so we are recapping the 2014 NWSL Championship between Seattle Reign and FC Kansas City. Of course, we have our In Case You Missed It news and notes segment, filling you in on everything that you might have missed. And we're bringing back Getting to Know You. We did it leading up to the Olympics, and we highlighted some big U.S. women's national team players. But now we're broadening that, and we're going to do Getting to Know the U.S. U20 Youth Women's National Team. Let's start with that because that U20 Women's World Cup tournament is happening right now, Sandra, in Cali, Colombia. We've touched on it a little bit on this show, but we are headed into the semifinals, and that is tonight. The U20 U.S. Youth Nationals team will play against North Korea in the semifinals. But how did they get here? What led us to this point in the season? The team is led by 8 NWSL players, including Ali Sentnor, who was the #1 draft pick in the 2024 NWSL draft and the final ever NWSL draft out of UNC, and she went to the Utah Royals. But let's start at the top. I'm going to start with the manager, Tracey Kevins, who has done an absolutely fantastic job with this group. She joined U.S. Soccer back in 2017. She was the head coach of the U15 side, and then she was with the U17s in 2019. She also had a stint in the NWSL as an assistant coach with Seattle, and she was also the technical director of the Reign Academy. But Kevins is from England, where she started coaching, and she was internationally coaching in England with the England youth national teams. But let's run through this roster, Sandra. We always start in the back with the goalkeepers. You want to run us through the goalkeepers of this incredible team right now?
I love it. Let's run it through the back. Yeah, shout out to Tegan Y, University of California, Berkeley. She's typically the starter. Mackenzie Gress and Carolyn Burkle, both of those rep in Penn State and Stanford. Shout out to the goalkeepers holding it down in the World Cup.
Absolutely. These goalkeepers have been fantastic. Tegan Y out of Cal Berkeley. She's played every single minute of this Women's World Cup. She was also on the 2022 U20 Women's World Cup roster in Costa Rica, with Ali Setnor. Defenders, I'm running them through for you. Giselle Thompson out of Angel City, Savvy King out of Bay FC, Jordan Bug out of Seattle Reign, Elise Evans from Stanford, Leah Klenke from Notre Dame, and Heather Gilchrist out of FSU, Florida State. Hit us with the midfielders.
We're getting into these the names that folks are getting familiar with. Some of these NWSL representing type of players. Shout out to Claire Hudden, Casey Current, Ellie Lemos, Orlando Pride, Taylor Suarez out of Florida State, Riley Jackson with NC Courage, Unikara McCormick out of Virginia, and Edison Halpern out of Virginia.
Forwards for this U20 group: Gianna Riley from Florida State, Jordan Dudley from Florida State as well, Ali Setnor with the Utah Royals, Emery Adamas, Seattle Reign, Madeline Grace Deline, UNC, and Pietra Torden out of Princeton. Before we kind of get to this whole how they got there in this specific World Cup tournament, I just want to give a shout out to Pietra Torden out of Princeton, because I called her games. I used to call games in the Ivy League, and I did a lot of Princeton games. So that's Madison Curry, who is the defender for Angel City right now, and Torden, who currently leads this World Cup right now with 4 goals. She leads the U.S. with 4 goals in this U20 Women's World Cup. But in 2022, she was the Rookie of the Year in the Ivy League. She was second team All-Ivy. She's got this Brazilian heritage, and she is a pure striker, Sandra. It's no wonder she's leading this U.S. team right now. But her identity is all about scoring, and she does it in really interesting ways because she's fast. She's so quick. She can get in behind, but she doesn't like to do that. She wants to be on the ball. She's got a really good Brazilian flair to her. So she checks back underneath. She wants the ball at her feet, and then she can create going forward. And that's what we've seen a lot from this side and from Pietra Torden. In this U20 Women's World Cup, the U.S. finished second in their Group C. They had 2 wins, 1 loss, 6 points, just behind Spain, who topped Group C. Round of 16, Sandra. This one was a tough one because the U.S. defeated Mexico 3-2 in a stoppage time game-winning goal from Jordan Dudley in the 97th minute. And that's not the only time that Jordan Dudley has come in absolutely clutch for this U20 team. The quarterfinals, you talked about it on Monday being your moment of the weekend, but it was incredible, an improbable, a dramatic, memorable game and win for the U.S. in history, right? This one goes down. It was the U.S. against Germany. The U.S. go down 1-0 in regulation on a penalty kick. So fast forward to the 90th minute. We get 8 minutes of stoppage time at the end of this one. 2 minutes into stoppage time, Germany doubled their lead. It's now 2-0. 8th and final minute of stoppage time, Jordan Dudley scores. So now the U.S. is crawling back 2-1. 1 minute later, 90 seconds later, across from Maddie Deline into Ali Setnor, who just duts in front of the defender, in front of the goalkeeper, and she scores a goal. 2-2, sends it into extra time. No goals in extra time. It goes into penalties. Goals from Ali Setnor, Riley Jackson, and Leah Klenke all put it away for the U.S. Tegan Y with a huge save in goal to give a U.S. 3-1 quarterfinal win over Germany on penalties. And the U.S. advanced to the semifinal for the first time for the U20s since 2016 because of 2 stoppage time goals in under 90 seconds, Sandra. It was awesome.
I had to go with that quarterfinal with my moment of the weekend. It was incredible. Shout out to Dudley. That's what I'm going to be calling her from now on. 2 back-to-back goals that were just so impactful at the death for this team. And these are the players I think that you and I were excited to maybe come on here and kind of acknowledge and show a little bit of love to, because as we were running down that roster of this team, we already have like a handful of players, let's just say several, not even a handful, several of these players who are kind of cutting their chops already in NWSL. We have seen some of them get starting minutes, kind of be a mainstay in regular starting 11s throughout this regular season. Some of them are options off the bench and still developing their games. But there are players who are representing some massive collegiate programs on this international stage as well. Dudley is one of them. So shout out to the Florida State kids there. looking at the midfielders out of Virginia with McCormick and Halpern as well. So it feels special right now what this team is doing. I mean, it's tough to do that once in an elimination knockout, but to do it again in a quarterfinal and kind of just keep dancing all the way through the elimination round, I think is very, very special. And you saying that this isn't something that's happened since 2016, I think is, in the back of everyone's mind a little bit, because this program at one point did kind of raise the bar and elevate the standard as far as winning the whole darn thing, whether it was in 2008 or in 2012. And ever since those years, there's been some disappointment, right? We to put it lightly. So hopefully they continue to ride the good vibes and continue to kind of surprise their opponents a little bit along the way.
Absolutely. SD Miller with us live on YouTube saying Emma's job is going to get harder and harder. It's ridiculous to have just so many choices coming up. Absolutely. When you look at this U20 group and how much depth they have, and then you talked about where they come from. There's a handful of Stanford representatives, 4 from Florida State. Obviously, the 8 that are currently playing professional in the NWSL, which adds such a great mix of talent, individual skill, and experience onto this U20 roster that, frankly, could be the right ingredients and the mix to go all the way, Sandra. So U.S. advance over Germany in penalties 3-1 to the semifinal. That match is tonight. This evening, the semifinal match for the U.S. against North Korea. It kicks off at 5:30 p.m. Eastern from Estadio Olímpico Pascual Guerrero in Cali, Colombia. You can watch it on FS2 and Telemundo Digital. The other semifinal is Japan versus Netherlands. Now, when we look at U.S. North Korea, throughout this run in this World Cup, Sandra, U.S. have scored 14 goals and they've conceded 5. North Korea, they've conceded only 4 and they've scored 23 goals. Absolutely insane. It's going to be a tough task for this U.S. side tonight. At goal predictions, what do you expect to see from U.S. against North Korea?
We've seen some wild score lines for the U.S. team now over the course of 2 knockout round games. I hope this one's a little bit different. And it might be a little bit difficult because you've got a team that they're going up against where maybe there's not a lot of film to go off of on them. They're just going to be operating maybe with what they've seen throughout the duration of this World Cup. It's going to take a lot of preparation. It's going to take a lot of lock-in. And I think it's going to take a lot of adaptability. They're going to have to really maybe kind of show off their football IQ, because maybe they might have to make some in-game adjustments depending on what North Korea is presenting to them. So yeah, fingers crossed. I hope maybe this one's going to be narrow. I'll maybe go a 2-1 or a 1-0.
I have to ask this because it's this U20 team. In regulation, do we get those goals?
No, let's keep it on theme. I love a theme. Extra time.
Extra time. I love it. Even like the stoppage time, added time. The one thing about this US U20 youth national team is you cannot count them out. With 90 seconds left in the quarters, they still get it done and force extra time. We took a poll on YouTube for everyone joining us live. 94% say that the U.S. is going to win. North Korea only getting 6% of the votes with us live on YouTube. If you want to vote in our next segment, next Wednesday, join us live, youtube.com/attackingthird, 11 a.m. Eastern on Wednesday. This is a big match. I'm going to go U.S. as well. I think it's going to be really narrow. I'm going to go 1-1. I think they'll force it into extra time, and then the U.S. gets it done in extra time. They don't go to penalties, but it's going to be really hard. This North Korean side, they have conceded, but they just rack up goals in such a variety of ways. They have so many different goal scorers. And for the U.S., it's Pietra Torden. She leads the team with 4 goals. And Emery Adamas, who plays with Seattle Reign under Laura Harvey, she leads the team with 4 assists. Tegan Wye, the goalkeeper who's played every single minute for the U.S., she has 49 goals prevented in this tournament. So she is not afraid to come off her line, be fearless, get in the mix. Good luck. U.S. U20 Youth Women's National Team. They play in the semifinal of the U20 Women's World Cup tonight, 5:30 p.m. against North Korea. Watch it. Cheer on those girls because before you know it, they're going to be on the full senior national team under Emma Hayes, making decisions that much harder at the international level. I love it. Go USA all the way. Don't go anywhere, though. We've got plenty more coming for you on Attacking Third.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Attacking Third. Last week, we launched a new segment, Sandra, Countdown to Kansas City, with just 10 weeks left in the regular season before the NWSL Championship Final on November 23rd. That match, 8 p.m. Eastern on CBS, live from CPKC Stadium in Kansas City. Our Countdown to Kansas City segment is a rewind. We get to look back at all previous NWSL championships. Last week, we looked at 2013. This week, we are looking at the 2014 NWSL Final. FC Kansas City won the final. They lifted the trophy at the end of it all. But let's rewind and look at how it came to be. The final was set for Sunday, August 31st. It was a noon kickoff. Pacific Standard Time. Very interesting. Starfire Sports Stadium in Tukwila, Washington. There was 4,200 people in attendance, and it was the Seattle Reign, the Shield winners as the home team versus second place finishers FC Kansas City. In the playoffs and at the end of the regular season, Seattle absolutely ran away with the Shield. They were 13 points ahead of second place FC Kansas City through 16 games. Seattle went 13-0-3. The only 3 losses for Seattle during their regular season came against Kansas City, who they ended up losing to in the final, Chicago, and Portland, who were reigning NWSL champions from 2013. And that was the
spoiler alert.
Season. Yeah, sorry, spoiler alert. I mean,
you don't know.
This happened 10 years ago. There are no spoilers, Sandra. No spoilers.
Okay.
Also, at the end of this season, Laura Harvey, head coach of the Seattle Reign, was given her first Coach of the Year award. Kim Little, who was making her NWSL debut in Seattle, had 16 goals, a then record in the NWSL, and was named the league MVP. But Seattle, Kansas City, they meet in the playoffs, and it was their third meeting. Remember, Kansas City defeated Seattle in their first meeting of the regular season. The next 2 meetings were draws. So throughout the playoffs, Seattle got first in the standings, so they took on 4th place Washington. It was a come-from-behind 2-1 win for the Reign. And number 2, FC Kansas City defeated the reigning NWSL champions, the 3rd place Portland Thorns, 2-0. Now, Mark, our producer for these Wednesday segments, does such a good job of getting all the details. He sends us the full game clips, the highlights, all the info. And as always, I have to break out my NWSL Almanac from Jen Cooper, the keeper. And in her book, Sandra, she has so many good, interesting nuggets. And listen to this one. The referees for the 2014 NWSL Final, assistant referee was Danielle Chesney. And the 4th was Katya Koroleva, who are 2 referees that we see featured in the NWSL week to week.
Often. Mm-hmm.
Representing and being referees in the league. So really cool to see that they were part of the 2014 final. Okay, let's run through the starting lineup. Seattle Reign, I'll start with them. In goal, Hope Solo, U.S. Women's National Team goalkeeper. In the back, it was Stephanie Cox, Lauren Barnes, Ellie Reed, Kendall Fletcher, Keelan Winters, Jess Fishlock, Kim Little, Naomi Kawasumi, Sydney LaRue, and Megan Rapinoe, managed by the one, the only Laura Harvey. No surprise there. Sandra, why don't you take us through FC Kansas City's lineup?
Yeah, let's do it. Shout out to my Midwest siblings. This is how they lined up with Nicole Barnhart in net, Jim Piskowski, Kelsey Kalman, Lauren Holiday, Leanne Robinson, Jenna Richmond, Nikki Phillips, Becky Sauerbrunn, Erica Timrek, Merritt Matthias, and Amy Rodriguez, managed by NWSL Best, Vlatko Andonovski.
I know, it's so crazy that
It's so wild.
Laura Harvey against Vlatko Andonovski. Laura Harvey is still with Seattle. She did leave for a small stint there in the middle of her tenure in Seattle. And Vlatko Andonovski is currently back with Kansas City, but is now the Kansas City Current, not FC Kansas City. They are different teams. It is a bit confusing. NWSL history and lore is a little bit confusing, but they are different teams. Some of the subs that were featured in this game include for FC Kansas City, Amy LaPelbit, Sarah Hagan came in, and Liz Bogus. Also, Bev Gabel came in for Sydney in the 67th minute for Seattle Reign. Now, some people may not know who that is. That is current Racing Louisville head coach Bev Yanez. So she did get married. She changed her name. I always love to kind of
love it
on these people and everything they did. I mean, there are a lot of familiar names across these rosters. Now, before we get into the nuts and bolts of actually how this game unfolded, I have to ask you, Sandra, how much of this did you know or remember before we started to do some research on this segment, before you watch the highlights or rewatch the game?
Oh, I remembered it because I remember feeling like Seattle was going to take this. Like, I just was like, they're going to come out here flying. They're going to get a goal and not look back. That ended up not necessarily being the case in this particular game. But I also remember the brightness of the game. Look, I'm remembering you going the rundown of this and saying that it was a noon kickoff. And that also kind of resonated with me as well, because we're running down the countdown to Kansas City for the 2024 championship, and then thinking about how in these early days it's a much different league than the one that we cover now week to week. And I would include in the way that the players have found their voices, have had not one but two versions of the CBA now. And a noon kickoff back then was just something that they were like, okay, this is it. Like, let's do it. Versus, now in this sort of tail end of the decade, going into a new decade of NWSL, players have been vocal about that. Like, why are we playing noon kickoffs? This is not good for our bodies. It's not good for that. But it's wild to think about then versus now. And also, shout out to Starfire Stadium. Like, that was also something that jogged my memory. I was like, oh, wow, this was actually a place where people went to go watch what is now become kind of like this Super Bowl caliber level type of event for women's soccer. So that still came into play, right? Where that's no longer the planning for a championship final. It's a neutral site now. And maybe back then it's just like they still tried to figure out ways to make sure that the home team or the team with the better record kind of still had a say in where they were going to host the game. And eventually that goes away as well. So a lot of fun. So I know people are also here for the history and the lore as well. And these are the moments in which we kind of look at them and see those moments kind of come to life.
Absolutely. Even, I mean, you touched on the noon local noon local kickoff. Now it's 8 p.m. prime time on CBS. Yes. Also the location of it, right? You think back, this was 4,500 fans at this 2014 final. 10 years later, in the 2023 final, we had over 25,000 fans. Like, wild. Insane. Attendance records being set weekly by so many NWSL clubs, but of course, championship wise, it is absolutely growing. Blade Runner 147 on YouTube saying, this is only their second season watching the NWSL. Hey, welcome to the party.
All right, Blade.
So fun. You want to see them all? Well, we're going to run through all of them for you on these Wednesdays. A lot of the highlights are available on NWSL YouTube. Go watch them after you listen to our summary and our recap, because these were electric. The early years of the NWSL, absolutely electric. Wild. You touched on it, Sandra, that for this game, Seattle against FC Kansas City, the Reign looked like they were going to dominate, right? So many people thought that coming into this match. They had just ran away with the Shield. They were doing so many excellent things to end the regular season. And for the first 20 minutes of this final, it was all Seattle. They had great possession, great momentum, really good buildup. They were whipping crosses in, getting dangerous, forcing a lot of saves out of Nicole Barnhart for FC Kansas City. However, Lauren Holiday, Amy Rodriguez, you can never count them out. 22nd minute for FC Kansas City. Lauren Holiday slips this beautiful ball through to Amy Rodriguez, and FC Kansas City takes the lead in the 22nd minute. They'd go into halftime up 1-0. Second half action, 56th minute. It's a rinse and a repeat. Lauren Holiday played to Amy Rodriguez, and Kansas City gets their second goal, 2-0, and they kind of rode this out for the majority of the second half. Seattle, though, was gaining momentum, trying to get back into it. It's kind of like the U.S. Youth U20 team. You can never count them out, because in the 86th minute, remember, Megan Rapinoe, Jess Fishlock, this team was absolutely stacked off a corner kick. The first shot goes off the post, and then the 86th minute, Megan Rapinoe finishes a goal for Seattle to cut the lead in half. The final 5 minutes of this match, once Seattle got one, were absolutely chaos. Rapinoe shooting, Jess Fishlock getting into the mix, Nicole Barnhart having to just lay life and limb on the line, and FC Kansas City to be incredibly disciplined defensively to hold Seattle off. Ultimately, they do so. Kansas City win the 2014 NWSL Championship 2-1 over Seattle. Lauren Holiday with 2 assists on the night to 2-goal A-Rod in the front, but Lauren Holiday earns the 2014 NWSL Championship MVP with her 2 assists. It was a game for Lauren Holiday and for FC Kansas City.
And rightfully so. Again, shout out to our producer Mark getting this image. It's it's reflective of maybe how we saw NWSL back then. A little bit blurry, maybe not so in focus, right, on some of these cameras back in the day. But goodness, what
Sandra, they had just won the National Women's Soccer League Championship. It's a daytime photo. There's no confetti. There are what are those? I can't. If you're looking
just
on
like
YouTube,
elevated platforms.
Yes, that's where the cameras were on the accordion type elevated mechanical equipment, where it was like a shaking camera that moved around. It's pretty funny to look back at that, and also thanks to all of those players who endured all of that to get to where we are now, where it's 25,000 fans, prime time on CBS, everything. The players even holding up the championship sign.
No more holding up your own championship banner. There's a stage now for these players to celebrate on. It's a wild time. And it's just like looking at the faces of some of these players, just, a couple that are still playing professionally, whether it's in NWSL or in USL, really. Shout out to Timrack. And it's just Lauren Holiday had rightfully winning MVP because of just an incredible game that she had. And I mean, this 2-1 scoreline, was, I think, reflective of some of the back lines that we saw, throughout that season. And then in this championship final, it's right that it was maybe a low scoring game, just because of the head-to-heads. I mean, I thought Keelan Winters on the other side of things for Seattle also had a good game, but they just didn't convert any of those chances. And we saw Seattle kind of attacking waves at some points, but just Nicole Barnhart, man, coming up big, really, really big. And that was a tough team to go up against, right? She'll Winters at the time. But this again, it's all part of the lore that we love. It's like, this is where it started. It's just like you had that one team that's a bit of a thorn in your side, and now you meet them on the biggest stage, and it plays out the way that it plays out. So shout out to everyone who participated in this first edition of this championship final, because we're going to find ourselves talking about it some more even next week, Lisa.
I know, every week, Sandra, we're diving into it and recapping it. The players, I like that you shouted out some of the players that are still kicking it. Lou Barnes, still with Seattle. Also Jess Fishlock. So originals, OGs, they started in Seattle in 2013, won the Shield, and then made it to the final in 2014. Sydney LaRue, also on that team. honorable mention, shout out to Bev Yanez because she's a coach. Laura Harvey, still a manager. When you look at Kansas City, Nicole Barnhart, still playing in the league, absolutely crushing it. Becky Sauerbrunn, who is still playing in the NWSL. Erica Timrak, you gave a shout out to her in the Super League. Merritt Mathias, still playing in the league. Honorable mention, shout out to Amy Rodriguez, who was the head coach of Utah Royals to start this season. She is no longer there, though. And then Black Winanovsky, who is back at Kansas City. It's so weird to think, like, if we were in a time warp, I'd be like, what year is it? Is it 2014? What's happening?
Yeah, it's like 10 years later just to still find some of these common threads. And you know what, I loved kind of going down memory lane for this because, like, I'm gonna also shout out Ellie Reed because we were talking about the U20 team, but like Ellie Reed was part of that like generation of players who won that U20 2008 World Cup. And I'm just like, God, this is just so wild, like how you find all of these commonalities and all of these shared threads. And just not too long ago, like Seattle had her as a national team replacement player on the roster in like 2022. So she didn't get minutes, but just you see those connections there that players have to their clubs for an extended period of time. And so like the fact that Reed found herself maybe not playing professionally for a little while at some point, eventually found her way back on as a national team replacement player for the then OL reign. So this particular segment for me that we're doing week in and week out until we get to the 2024 NWSL championship is really, really great. It's making me feel nostalgic, but it's also, I think, giving us an opportunity to kind of pay homage a little bit to these players that help really kind of build up this league. We're about a week removed or so from celebrating Alex Morgan and her retirement, and we talked a lot extensively about the fact that maybe there might not be a league if not for Alex Morgan and her generation of national team players. But we have to extend that line a little bit to some of these players that we saw, players who were part of that extended player pool of the national team and players who weren't, whether it was like I'm referencing Winters, who was maybe part of that extended player pool, but didn't necessarily keep that allocation status early on in the NWSL seasons, with Stephanie Cox, who had spent a lot of time in the national team program, but eventually kind of saw herself rotated out of the defensive picture for the national team moving forward, but still week in and week out, we're putting together massive performances for their teams in NWSL.
Absolutely. I mean, Kim Little came into the league this year. Steph Cox returned from pregnancy. So did Amy Rodriguez. Hope Solo, she had wrist surgery prior to this year, coming back in. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So many of these players have laid all the bricks to get to where we are now. If you're with us live on YouTube, our great producer Mark has dropped the full match link that is on YouTube into the chat. So if you're listening as a podcast and you're like, hey, I really want to go back and watch this full game, the link is on YouTube in the live chat. You can also watch the highlights on NWSL YouTube. Don't go anywhere. We've got more Attacking Third because we're doing our In Case You Missed It segment next. Stick with us. Welcome back to Attacking Third. She's Sandra. I'm Lisa. In case you missed it, there's a lot that has happened. This is our In Case You Missed It segment, filling you in on all the news, notes, transfers, updates that you may have missed or we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. Now we get to dive into it. Match day 20 in the NWSL. Sandra saw Monday NWSL After Dark action. We previewed it on Monday's show in studio, but it was Seattle Reign hosting Gotham FC in match day 20. Ultimately, Gotham wins 2-0, minutes, we get a goal from Delaney Sheehan, and then in the 85th, Esther Gonzalez doubles the lead for Gotham. Big question heading into this match was, who the heck was Laura Harvey going to play in the right back position without Sofia Huerta, who had been sent on loan over to England? And it was Hannah Glass who stepped in for Sofia Huerta in that outside right back position. Who impressed you in this game? What did you think of this match, Sandra?
Listen, first of all, Monday night NWSL, I don't know if it was something that I was prepared for, but I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed it. It helped kind of kickstart the week for me. Gotham, I think they're a team that are still kind of maybe we're looking for some of that kind of pre-Olympic form, kind of now post-Olympics in this regular season. Well, they were a lot of fun to watch over the course of the Summer Cup. And now that they've got their Olympians back, how are they kind of weaving their way back in? And I thought Rose Lavelle had an incredible game for Gotham. We saw her slicing and dicing. It was tough for that Seattle Reign side. And they are the team that I was looking at that maybe could deliver an upset, as they were kind of on this undefeated streak of their own with 5 games, 3 wins in their last 3 matches. So I thought it kind of gave what it was giving to teams, kind of making sure that they wanted to snatch up those 3 points. But I had to give a shout out to Lavelle, because I was very, very impressed with how she helped set things up for the team.
Absolutely. Rose Lavelle, the magician in the midfield for Gotham. She did so much to pull the strings creatively in the attack, driving at back lines, creating chances, opening up spaces. She ripped a couple good shots herself. None of them good enough to find the back of the net, but she's getting there. She is knocking on the door. When she starts winding up like that and just ripping shots, I'm scared. I'm truly scared for the defense. I've had the pleasure, or the unfortunate pleasure, of playing defense against Rose Lavelle for a number of years in college against her. Man, her shots hurt when you take them off the thigh. It's not good. It's not good. I've had soccer ball marks in my leg for days after her shots.
It's my favorite story that you tell every single time. And I hurt with you.
So bad. It hurts so bad. So this was a Monday night game. Now, new announcement, new records being broken, I guess you can call it that, in the NWSL. Gotham has now become the first NWSL team ever to play a match on every single day of the week during one season.
Congrats, I guess.
I don't know if they want that honor and that title, but you get it anyway. It's kind of like an attacking third award. They're like, thanks. Did I need this? Yes, you did. Here you go.
It's like the goal. It's like the goalkeeper mark. It's like, oh, most saves faced, or most shots faced, and you're like, I'm getting pummeled out there. What are you talking about?
Gotham's like, we've played on every day. Cool. Now we know that we can win and we can just go. Absolutely incredible. But Gotham, they get the 2-0 win. The New Jersey, New York side now jumps up to 3rd place in the standings, ahead of Kansas City Current by just 1 point. And that 1 point can make all the difference with 6 match days left. Meanwhile, Seattle Reign, they sit in 11th place, 20 points. They're only 5 points out of the top 8. A lot of football left to play, 6 matches left, a lot of time still for Seattle to bounce back. In more Gotham FC news, the reigning NWSL champions have been invited to the White House, and they will be the first NWSL team to visit the White House for a championship celebration. President Joe Biden will welcome the team on Monday, and it is the championships team, Sandra. So we get a little bit of a reunion, most importantly, including the now retired U.S. legend, Allie Krieger, who will be at the White House to celebrate. This is so cool. I'm so happy for the team and the fact that they get to be honored, and go enjoy this time, because going from last to first is not easy, and they deserve it.
Yeah, massive. And look, making history along the way, and overdue, quite frankly. Let's be real. Happy they're gonna get this moment. It was an incredible storyline that we got to cover last year. So I'm happy they're gonna get to have that experience. And look, Krieger's going to be back. Herrera will be there as well. They can give some tips to the team about navigating the White House, because they've gotten to check that out and be part of that as part of the World Cup winning U.S. Women's National Team. But now it's going to be a different experience, kind of going through this club team.
So, fun fact for you, Sandra, that Gotham, New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC becomes the first NWSL team to go to the White House. Now, the U.S. women's national team World Cup winning group also got to go to the White House. However, in 2010, when Sky Blue FC won the WPS in 2009, the 2009 championship, they got to go to the White House in 2010. It is the same franchise 14 years later going back to the White House. That's pretty cool.
I love a remix. I love a good remix. Let's go. Let's get
cool.
it.
Pretty
Let's
cool.
go.
So congrats, Gotham. They'll be at the White House on Monday. Big news out of CONCACAF. The Federation announces the 2025 to 2029 women's national team competitions. There is a lot in this article that dropped, a lot that we're going to get into. We're going to touch on it today, but there will be an episode coming up where we talk more about the CONCACAF 2025 to 2029 schedule. But the big bullet points of this announcement is that this is a launch of a consistent national team calendar to benefit everyone in the CONCACAF Federation. This means a lot to some of the smaller federations that don't have a lot of consistency. They don't know the next time they're going to get together. They want more meaningful games and competition so that they can build up their own federations. So the 2025-2026 W Championship is announced. The 2028 inaugural W Nations League and the second edition of the W Gold Cup is set for 2029. Some other qualifiers and big bullet points out of this announcement is the qualifiers for the 2027 Women's World Cup and 2028 Summer Olympics will be done in the 2026 CONCACAF W Championship. So the Women's World Cup and the Olympics, their qualifiers will be done in 2026 in the W Championship. I mean, there's so much to break down in this, Sandra, but when you first saw the news, the announcement, read through the article, what stood out to you?
You know, I'm here for elevating the region. I think back to when we were first going through a calendar that introduced the inaugural or the revamped version of a Gold Cup competition and how that was going to include a road to the Gold Cup, qualifiers for that. It's getting, there's what, 40 something nations that are involved in CONCACAF. And so often fans, pundits, reporters, journalists only just get access and see the tip of that iceberg. There's so much underneath. So I'm here for this. I love stuff like this, and there's going to be more along the way. So I'm also here for this inaugural W Nations League tournament that we're going to get to cover as well.
Yes, it is very exciting. I think one of the most interesting nuggets to me is that the W Gold Cup was a success, right? It's not happening again for 5 years, not until 2029, when the men's happens every 2 years. So still some kinks that CONCACAF is trying to figure out. Also for the W Championship, it is set for November of 2026 with 8 teams in 5 knockout rounds of single elimination. The top 4 teams, it's similar to the W Championship back in 2020, 2021. When was that? 2020. I don't remember.
That year's a blur for a lot of us.
Sorry, I don't remember that year, but it was back then, the first W Championship, but it'll be very similar. So the top 4 teams, so the teams that make it to the W Championship semifinals will qualify for the Women's World Cup. The bottom 4 teams will advance to a play-in tournament for the 2 remaining slots for the Women's World Cup. And the finalists, so the 2 teams that are in the championship, will qualify for the 2028 Olympics. But the 28 Olympics are going to be in LA. So if one of those teams is the US, the 3rd place winner will clinch that final spot. Okay, so honorable mention, shout out to midfielder Morgan Gautreau. She played her 100 NWSL match this past weekend. And another big announcement out of Australia after the retirement of Tony Gustafsson following the Olympics for the Matildas. Tom Sermanni returns to the Matildas as the interim head coach of the Australian women's national team. He is a Scotsman and he's been appointed returning to this team as one of the longest serving coaches of the Australian women's national team. He was there from 1994 to 1997, and then again from 2005 to 2012. He's in the Football Australia Hall of Fame as an inducted coach. He spent time as the head coach of the U.S. women's national team, Sandra, from 2013 to 2014. He was with New Zealand as the women's national team head coach from 2018 through the Tokyo Olympics. He was an assistant coach at Canada Soccer for the 2015 Women's World Cup. He is highly decorated, and he's also spent some time in the U.S. as a club coach in the WUSA. He was an assistant for the Bay Area Cyber Rays and then a head coach for New York Power and Orlando Pride, and he now returns to the Matildas. Not a bad get, but he's just an interim right now for Australia.
Yeah, I think that's the right move. He's again incredibly decorated, a lot of experience. Just you running down everywhere he's been. He was the last coach to take the Orlando Pride to a playoff game. You know, that's a long time ago, 2017. But he's someone that has a lot of experience in that particular region of the world, and we have to be frank, the Matildas are coming off of what was not a good Olympic experience. It feels like perhaps this is a turning point for the program. And if that's what it feels like, I don't know if you stick with the familiar face that's sort of always been around, right? So I think it's a smart move to maybe provide some stability, and it's the right move to kind of give it the label of interim. Maybe it'll give them some time to do a more vetted search and maybe land what will be their eventual ideal candidate.
Yeah, we'll see. Big things on the horizon for the Matildas. And for us, we've got a bit of a venue change, programming note for everyone. For Thursday's Attacking Third show, we will be live on YouTube from 11:30 a.m. Eastern. So hit that subscribe button, get alerts, set your calendar, block off your calendar from work, and join us live 11:30 a.m. on YouTube. We've got the whole gang with us: Darian Jenkins, Christine Cupo, Sandra will be here. I'll be here. We're going to be talking weekend previews for NWSL. And we get the Barclays Women's Super League back in action. So that is all coming up tomorrow on Attacking Third Thursday on YouTube. Of course, we're also available as a podcast. And Gotham, they're headed to the White House on Monday, Sandra. But our producer, Mark, he's been doing work backstage of this episode. He got a picture of the 2009 Sky Blue team that went to the White House in 2010 after winning the WPS championship.
Incredible. Look at that. I see you, Angela Salem. I see you, Christine Crampone. Look at that.
Some of these familiar faces. Yeah. Wow.
Oh wow. God. What a great way to close it out. Obama 09. Look at that. That is a sky blue kit. That is what that is.
Throwback kit. We saw Kansas City's throwback logo when we did the road to Kansas City.
And it like shook us up a little bit. It was a little...
Now we get to see even just the back of the 2009 Sky Blue kit. Obama is holding it up with the team and staff around him. And the back of the kit says Obama 09 on it. Pretty cool. I like that we closed out with that.
Well, we'll have to have an updated one on the next episode.
Yeah, we'll have to get Monday's picture on next week's episode to bring it full circle. Final thoughts from you, Sandra.
Watch the U20 World Cup. Let's go, baby Nats. Bring it home.
Let's go. 5:30 against North Korea, the U.S. U20 youth national team in the semifinals of the U20 Women's World Cup. Watch it. Thanks everyone so much for joining us. Make sure you follow Attacking Third wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and review. We're also available on youtube.com/Attacking Third, and you can watch us on CBS Sports Golazo Network for all your women's football coverage. For Mark and Sandra, I'm Lisa. This was Attacking Third.